as I scanned just to select some exemplars from his life on the planet Earth, one of my favorite episodes is the road to Emmaus. We all know about Easter morning, as we call it, resurrection morning, and all of that. But it's that afternoon that I think is rather interesting. There's a 7-mile walk from Jerusalem to Emmaus, and it's a very interesting episode. These two guys are walking along, they're talking together those things which had happened. It came to pass that while they communed together and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were holden that they should not know him. I don't know what that means, but whatever it does mean is relieved later. So we'll get to that in a minute. And he said unto them, notice it, the two guys are walking, Jesus joins them and they don't realize who he is. And Jesus said unto them, what manner of communications are these that ye have one to another as ye walk and are sad? In other words, hey guys, why are you so blue? In effect, right? One of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering said unto him, art thou only a stranger in Jerusalem, and hast not known the things which are come to pass in these days? They're walking along, they're kind of blue. He says, why are you so glum? And he sort of said to him, where were you, fella? You know, are you a stranger here or something? And I love this line. I love it because it gives you a glimpse. Does Jesus have a sense of humor? There's no other way to explain as he looks to them and says, what things? He can keep a straight face. He just has been arrested, tortured to death, crucified, buried, 3 days later is resurrected, and he can look them in the eye and say, what things? That takes a composure that I think is as humorous as it gets. Well, they respond to him and says, concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who's a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. And they go through then and summarize it all. How the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and have crucified him. And we had trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. And beside all this, today's the 3rd day since these things were done. Yea, and certain women of our company also made us astonished, and were early in the sepulchre, and when they found not his body, they came saying they'd also seen a vision of angels which said that he was alive. And certain of them which were with us went to the sepulchre and found it even so as the women had said, but him they saw not. So that's Luke's summary. They give him a summary of what's going on. Now then notice what Jesus does. This is even more provocative than his earlier remark. Then he said unto them, O fools, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? Notice what he's doing. He speaks of himself in the third person. It is, hey guys, if we were writing the shooting script, it's, hey, it's me, right? No. He talks to them about that guy. Ought not Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And then he teaches them for 7 miles. And he remains incognito. They don't realize who he is, and he doesn't clarify it. And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, and by the way, that's where you know Moses wrote the book of Moses. Don't let anyone con you about that one. And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded unto them all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. Now that's a quick phrase, but think about that for a minute. He expounded unto them all the scriptures. Every single verse, not necessarily, but most of it, he certainly covered the field here. See, Moses did write the Torah anyway. In all the scriptures, wow. Now, a 7-mile Bible study covering all the scriptures. What would that include? I'm sure he would start with the seed of the woman, the promise where God declares war on Satan. It would certainly include the Akedah, Abraham's offering of Isaac. It certainly would include the Passover, the tabernacle, serpent in the wilderness, and other prophetic passages, Isaiah 53, Psalm 22. You can easily concatenate 7 miles of study here very easily. Because Jesus is on every page of the Old Testament. They drew nigh unto a village, whither they went, and he made as though he would have gone further. In other words, they all got to where they're going, and he was just going to continue then. But they constrained him, saying, abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. And he went in to tarry with them. So they insist he stay for dinner, and he does. He's my kind of guy. He never appears after his resurrection without eating. He's my kind of guy. I like that. And it came to pass, now this is strange, it came to pass that as he sat at meat with them, he took bread and blessed it and brake and gave it to them. That's unusual. That's in fact weird, because that was the job of the host, not the guest. And yet he just takes charge. In fact, we'll learn shortly that they recognized him when he broke the bread. What was it that caused him to be recognized when he broke the bread? Anyone? Right, exactly. Pointing to your wrists. They saw the scars from the crucifixion. Well, that raises a mystery. Why is it they didn't recognize him till then? These were disciples. They knew him. They walked 7 miles and didn't recognize who he was. That's strange. In fact, that whole mystery starts back that morning when Mary's in the garden. She mistakes him for the gardener until she hears his voice. It's his voice that tipped her off, apparently, Rabboni. So anyway, their eyes were open and they knew him, and then he vanishes out of their sight. That must have shook them up. But they finally do recognize him, and they go back 7 miles to Jerusalem because they are in the upper room that night when he shows up. And they're really shook up when he gets there. We know he has his nail prints, by the way, because Thomas wants to put his finger in. We know that in his resurrection body, he has the scars. And Zechariah even says in the second coming that they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. So that's, and John speaks of the Lamb as it's explained in John 5:6. The only man-made things in heaven will be scars. So they go back to the upper room, and when they're there, they explain that the Lord has risen indeed, and they have the period of Simon, and they told things that had been done on the way, and how he was made known of them in the breaking of bread. They point out for you later in that chapter that that's how they recognized him when he broke the bread. And they're shook up. They think he's a ghost. He says, no, handle me and see. A spirit does not have flesh and bone as you see me have.